back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. It says so right underneath me. I've got the bow tie on. We are in a place I've been trying to come for a while. Now, they're closed right now, but by the end of the show, they will be open. We are in a beautiful Captain Larry's right on Ford Avenue. I've driven past, and I've been in here a number of times, but driven past it probably as much as I've driven past anything, because I live downtown. In order to get to the supermarket, in order to get to anywhere, I had to sort of, in order to get to 95, I sort of go to the tunnel, go to Dundalk. I went down Ford Avenue. So my tire tracks are in front of Captain Larry's. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. We have some instant lottery scratch-offs to give away, thanks to Roz and John. Also, our friends at Window Nation. I'm not going to make Chris wear the Window Nation hat. A few things. We're at Captain Larry's, and I want to give a few doffs of the cap to some friends. Victoria August, who was supposed to be my first guest on the program, couldn't make it. New Orleans, things are happening, but this is her neighborhood bar. Also, my dear friend Chris Pica. It is also his neighborhood bar, and he lives right down the street, and he's off XFLing with the Seattle XFL team, so he couldn't be here. But at some point, we'll gather again out here on the outsides, and we will be open a little later on. So we'll have the crab cake, the famous Captain Larry's crab cake that we're going to have here. I almost came down on St. Patrick's Day for the famous corned beef and cabbage. I hear it was crowded here that day. Chris Riehl does things in the travel space. What do I say about you? You're an Oriole guy, Raven guy. You're sort of we have a lot in common in regard to loving the city.
For sure.
And if I weren't doing what I was doing, a really good friend of mine said, man, if this radio thing falls apart, Chad Steele and Steve Bisciotti run me out of business, what am I going to do? And a friend of mine said, you'll do a travel thing, dude. Like, nobody travels more than you. Nobody goes more. I mean, I was in Hawaii yesterday, right? So the travel thing, that's your bug, right? And more than that, your thing is really Baltimore and love of Baltimore and showing people who aren't from Baltimore around Baltimore a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I don't travel as much as I would like to because I'm always trying to get people to come here. That's my thing. I want to be here to welcome them. I want people to travel to Baltimore and to travel to Maryland. Yeah, I have a company called Rent-A-Tour, rentatour.com, and we do city tours all over the place for groups of all shapes and sizes. We just showcase what makes Baltimore such a special place. And there are so many stories to tell. It really depends on the group, but I'll tell you, we're on Ford Avenue right now, and if we were to keep going just a few more blocks, we would eventually get out to Fort McHenry National Monument and Historic Shrine, which for me is a must-see in Baltimore. You'd be amazed at how many people, obviously we've all heard the Star-Spangled Banner a million times before every baseball game, every time you watch the Olympics, but very few people know the story behind it and Baltimore's connection to it. So it's always incredibly gratifying.
You take them up the Federal Hill, show them the cannons, right?
Yeah.
All that.
Oh,
right?
man, stand on the ramparts. Look out over the Patapsco River. Imagine British bomb ships sitting out there just trying to bomb
ramparts
you
are real things. They're not just a thing in the song.
They are a real thing. You could stand on them at Fort McHenry. People always ask, this is the rampart? This is what they're talking about in the song? Yep, you're standing
Where's the Twilights and the Last Gleaming and all that stuff?
Yeah, and when they put that big flag up at Fort McHenry, it's really something special. That 30-foot high, 42-foot long flag is pretty wild. I was there with a group 2 weeks ago, and we were there right at the opening, and they always hoist that flag up. They can only put the big flag up in certain weather conditions, and when they have enough people to help them hoist it. It takes...
Because you can't touch the ground.
Yeah, right. You want to be respectful. It takes about 15 to 20 people just to get that flag up the flagstaff. So we were lucky to be there on a beautiful day with enough people, and watching that flag go up, I was filming it with my phone, and it almost hit me because the wind caught it just at the right moment. It was a very cool video because it's like this enormous flag coming right at you, and then all of a sudden it's up there on the flagstaff. So that's always pretty powerful and pretty moving for people, and hopefully that's a story they'll take home with them.
Well, look, we'll talk some Orioles with you. I'm not going to stay away from the draft because we're here on the eve of the draft, and I've been traveling. I wanted to talk about travel, tourism, Baltimore, love of Baltimore, but I just got off a plane from Hawaii. I landed at BWI 3 o'clock in the morning, and I've spent the last 10 days in the tropics with mountains and palm trees and the things that make Maui and Hawaii special.
Sure.
And I'm going around thinking, this is beautiful. This is great. Lahaina and the missions and the beach, and Wale is like sort of the Beverly Hills, and Kihei is sort of the Dundalk of, you know what I mean? Sort of, like the regular place. So all of these places, and I'm thinking to myself, I think this about Baltimore every time I come here, and even just driving down Ford Avenue. You mentioned, I did the show at LP Steamers last year.
I love it.
Did the Crab Cake Tour down there. Just this whole corridor and bars like Captain Larry's that have been here hundreds of years in some cases, structures that have been here hundreds of years, but so many places don't have that. Walea's got a lot, but it doesn't have that kind of history, right? For us and for the city itself. And I'm looking at a mural here, Captain Larry's, of this sort of old school Baltimore grayish sort of mural.
Yeah.
And we look European, right? So if you go to Amsterdam, if you've spent time in old Europe, Dublin, and those kind of places, we look and feel that way, and there are not. Dallas doesn't look like this.
Right.
Chicago doesn't look like. Places that were not around in the 1700s don't have this feel, the row homes we have here. People think we have row homes everywhere. They do not.
Not like we do. No.
Not at all. I mean, even the ones in Philadelphia aren't really like the ones here, you know? So the part of Baltimore that if somebody comes into you and says, I'm here for the first time, take me to Fort McHenry, I just think to myself, when we have visitors here, I have so many places and so many things I want to take them to do that I don't know that a day or two or three for my wife's family, for visiting friends, it's never enough.
No, there's no shortage of stories to tell. And you always learn new things every time you go out, too. There's always a new nugget to uncover as you just go around and kind of explore. And you talk about the European influence. You know, a lot of folks don't realize that Baltimore was second only to Ellis Island in some years as a port of entry for European immigrants coming into the United States, coming from Germany, coming from Ireland, coming from Italy, coming from Eastern Europe. And so you see a lot of that influence in our architecture. And something else that set Baltimore apart was our row homes. Because in other cities, families of limited means would be forced to live in these high-rise tenement apartment buildings. Here we had homes for those folks, and folks,
humble, small,
modest homes.
I was raised in one of those.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah,
and you know the amount of pride people take in home ownership, and you know, having those marble steps out in front and the leaded stained glass above the windows and doors. So that's why our neighborhoods look the way they do. That's why we have. It's great, absolutely, sitting out there and scrubbing in marble steps. I mean, that's what makes Baltimore so special. It's just this diversity of cultures, and it all kind of comes together here. And you know, more people need to know about that. And we're out there all the time, you know, working with the State Tourism Bureau, the local tourism bureau, trying to spread that message.
Well, I saw you at Mako last year, right? So explain to people at a higher level, maybe Al Hutchinson come at some point, or other people from the state, what's being done to bring back tourism, right? I mean, Hawaii sucked me in with a cheap flight and cheap rooms, right?
Sure.
So I went over and did my thing, had my last piece of banana bread I had here a couple minutes ago from Leota's. And it's fun being a tourist. It's fun seeking. We did the road to Hana, you know? So you think about these things that you see in a magazine. There are plenty of people, my wife being one of them, many, I meet people all the time say, I came to your city and I went to the aquarium. I went to an Oriole game. I went to a Raven game. I went to Hammerjacks years ago. I walked in Fells Point. Just stories of people having an experience. My wife had a work event here before she met me, and she still says, that's the Thai joint I went into, but when I came here, yeah. And she stayed down at the harbor, did the convention. What tourists do.
Yeah, sure.
And what are tourists finding now, and what are we doing as a state, as a city, to bring people back?
Well, I think something that is really popular these days among people that are looking for a place to visit is authenticity. And Baltimore's got that in spades. Baltimore is an authentic
crab
place.
Cakes.
Yeah, absolutely. The food, the crab cakes, but it's all authentic, right? I mean, it's not manufactured.
Dude, I'm at Captain Larry's.
Yeah,
what's more authentic than this?
Yeah, of course. And you know, you've got places like this in neighborhoods all over the city. So that's what I think people are really hungry for. You know, literally and figuratively. and you know, we've got that here. So that's the story that we're trying to tell. We're trying to make sure that when we are telling our tourism story, we are also remembering the people who live here, because it doesn't have to be one or the other, right? You know, you can have a great tourist district that benefits everybody in the city.
Well, tourists become residents in some cases, especially
people
in this
want to buy in.
Right?
Yeah,
Young
I mean,
people.
People come here and they fall in love with it, and people work in these hotels and these restaurants and these attractions. It really supports the economy of the city. So it can really benefit everybody, and that's the story that we're trying to tell. You know, in the private sector, with groups like Visit Baltimore and the Maryland Office of Tourism Development, we're trying to tell our stories more effectively and more inclusively and make sure that everybody feels welcome here. There's a lot of really exciting things happening, and I just want to invite everybody, not just to visit from other parts of the country or other parts of the world, but from other parts of Maryland. You know,
get down here from Bel Air.
Seriously,
go to an Oriole
come
game.
into the city. I'm telling you, you're going to have a great time. There is so much to see and do. You won't regret it. You're going to have a blast.
Well, I love the city. I'm still here 3 days a week. I'm here today. I'll be at Fadley's tomorrow. By the way, shout out. We're going to be in Middle River next week. We're going to be at McFalls next Thursday doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. It's all presented by our friends at Window Nation. I'm not going to make Chris wear the hat. 866-90 Nation. Buy two, get two free. 5 years, 0% financing. And our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I have brand new instant lottery scratch. I'll also be giving these away here today at Captain Larry's, and then at Fadley's, and then next week at McFalls. And we have a whole lineup of Crab Cake Tour stops we're going to be making all around the region. Is that the winning
ticket right there? Is that the one?
I had a $50 winner at Pappas in Bel Air 2 weeks ago, and people were screaming. I had a lot of winners at Fadley's on opening day.
Oh, yeah?
We were going to do opening. We were going to do the show that day. This brings me to baseball on opening day, because that's a great segue for you, because you're Mr. Orioles. You and your wife go to the games, and the missing ingredient for me, I bought a home downtown in 2003. I ran the Peter Principles here while I was gone for a couple days, talking about what happened to the franchise in the fall of the franchise. I think it's important. It's 22 years ago that Mike Messina left, right? Mm-hmm. And that's pretty momentous part of the fall and the collapse of the Orioles and the fan base and what happened. They're playing winning baseball. People that are going to the game are having a great time, because I've been following it from Hawaii every day. I mean, they were getting no hit, then they come back and win. And I know it's meager competition in April, and it'll get tougher next month, and that's all good. But the notion that things that bring people together, two massive things have happened in the last 4 weeks here. We've opened an arena that is already, last Friday night, I'm in Hawaii. Everybody's at I was 4 in the afternoon in Hawaii, right?
Right.
Everybody's at Adam Sandler on Friday night. And if they weren't at Adam Sandler, they were at Chicago. And if they weren't at Chicago, they were at the ballpark. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, this is why I bought into the city in 2003, because that's a tough night for me. My wife went to high school with Adam Sandler. We love Chicago. We love the pier. The Orioles are up the street. That's a big city problem.
Yeah,
those are the kind of decisions.
It's a good problem to have.
Those are the decisions you want to have to make, as to say, our city's so awesome, there's a bunch of different things I could do tonight. Which one do I want? Which restaurant do I want to eat at? Which neighborhood do I want to hang out in? And the plague sort of cleared the slate for everybody, everywhere. I mean, I was talking to people in Hawaii about tourism. What do you think the lady that owned the Shave Ice stand said about the plague? Who was buying shave ice from her? The only one who buys it are tourists.
Yeah, right.
And they weren't letting anybody on the island, right? Yeah. So she said, I went through all my savings. I mean, I'm hearing horror stories, right, in Hawaii, right? It's beautiful. For us, this piece of CFG Bank Arena, and I'm going to have Bill Waddell on the 12th of May, still working that out. The piece where the arena brings 10,000 people down to Adam Sandler, where Pier 6 brings 6,000 people down to Chicago. Where the Orioles used to bring 48. I don't know how many there weren't many there Friday from what I understand. But this part where baseball and the arena, and we talk about Harbor Place and whatever's going to happen there, these are reasons that are going to bring that guy from Bel Air, that couple from Carroll County, those folks in Columbia, Rockville, into the city, and they're going to find Captain Larry's Crab Cakes, and I'm going to tell them about it. Or they're going to find an LP Steamers. They're going to find a place down here, and they're going to order some shrimp, get a crab cake, get a pita bread with the delicious lamb, the hero that you have. And the baseball team is such – it's how it got built. Yeah. It was – I'm not making this up. You can talk about the aquarium or the science center or even the harbor itself, but the baseball team changed everything here in 1992 when that stadium came on. 3.5 million people were coming into the city and leaving money at Phillips and Hooters and all of these places that will never be again in that way at the harbor. But we have a really great chance over the next 5 years with the baseball team, with the arena, with the kind of acts we're getting, to have a renaissance, another. It's time. It's been 30
exciting.
years.
It's very exciting, especially at Harbor Place. Now that we have local developer David Bramble involved with that project, it's going to be by Baltimore and for Baltimore. It's going to be a welcoming place for those visitors that are coming into the city, but it's also going to be a place that people who live in the city can appreciate and enjoy too, which is going to be great. And talking about the Orioles, I've been an Orioles fan my entire life. I have been in tourism now for more than 15 years, and I have always felt those two things go hand in hand. And I want the Orioles to win because I'm an Orioles fan, but I also want the Orioles to win because tourism helps Baltimore. And when those people are coming into the city and enjoying those baseball games, like you said, they're also eating in restaurants and they're spending the night in hotels and they're visiting all of our great attractions and, cultural sites and everything else. So, yeah, when the Orioles are doing well, it's good for everybody. And this is about as excited as I think I can remember seeing the fan base in quite some time.
Well, there's something to be excited about.
Absolutely.
I mean, they call me the Debbie Downer, nasty, like all that. This has been, I'll call it dog shit baseball for 30 years. I mean, it has been.
We did have that nice little respite there when we had our winning seasons.
And I'm
with
not
Buck
down, but that if that's all you're talking about over 30 years, you don't have much to talk about.
It's a blip on the radar. But you remember how the energy felt at that time. I mean,
I'm ready for new energy in a way that doesn't involve Peter Angelos or John at some point. But whatever the next thing is, we're getting real close to it.
Yeah.
We're getting real close to whatever this is going to be, and whatever Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, these young players, Grayson Rodriguez, whatever this crop of players brings to the city. But then there's the part of, all right, the stadium's there. It's beautiful. We've made improvements. The city's getting better. The baseball team's getting better. Hopefully they're making it attractive for you to want to come down, that you have a good experience getting a hot dog, parking the car, whatever you need to do. But I fully agree with you that this is the real go moment for us to say that's the difference between 1 million more people coming into the city next summer and the next summer and the next summer than came in last summer or the summer before that. Yeah. And that's 1 million more people that can come in and say, this is a great place. I want to come back. I want to live here. I want to have a convention here. I want to tell other people. I want to share selfies of me with the Jim Palmer statue or whatever, or go out on a tour with Chris, that they're going to have that positive experience. But the baseball thing, more so, maybe Janet Jackson in Chicago, the concerts on a continual basis will have a reason to bring people into that corridor. But if you're not coming down for a purpose, other than just saying destination dinner, or I'm just going to walk around because it's a nice day, shows reasons to come. The Orioles, again, are finally a reason. Yeah. And I'm going to write a lot about this in my columns. It's just such an important that they don't get this wrong. Yeah, that they absolutely. Get it right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we are on the cusp of something really special here, and I just want to enjoy the ride, see how this season plays out. I think this is a franchise record for wins in April. Did I hear that? 16 wins in April, and the month's not even over yet. That's crazy. Well, that's I don't care who you're playing. They're all professional baseball players.
Listen,
you know what I mean?
That's what makes somebody look down and say, when's ball cap night in June?
Yeah, right.
When's Tankard? And you
Put
start.
It on the calendar.
Right, start. I want to go down there. Maybe not today. Maybe when the weather. Maybe when kids get out of school. But making a plan to do it. And that hadn't happened in a long time.
Yeah,
it really hasn't.
You're right. I think you're right. And Oriole Park is still an amazing place to enjoy a baseball game. You probably heard about some of the improvements that are going to be coming to the whole stadium complex.
No doubt.
The General Assembly allocated some money for that. So
we're paying for it, by the way. I just want you to know that. I'm just letting you know. I'll be asking Steve about that soon. It's only $600 million to billionaires.
Hey.
So, I'm just saying,
But with
that comes accountability,
the stadiums and accountability.
They have to get it right.
And also that area around the stadiums are going to be building up as well. So it becomes a year-round destination, too. So that's something that I think we have to look forward to.
You see that rising out of the sky.
I was just over there. It's fantastic what they're doing over there. The Walk on Warner. They've got the new Paramount venue that should be opening their doors soon. And then over at the Baltimore Peninsula, I still call it Port Covington, but the Baltimore Peninsula is where you've got...
I ain't ever going to call it that. Where's the Baltimore Peninsula? I ain't never heard of a Baltimore Peninsula.
It's out that way someplace.
You mean the port? Oh, down the port.
Yeah,
okay.
Port Covington. But that's coming up real quick, too. They got a whole stadium over there that they've built, Under Armour's built. So, there are tons of reasons to be bullish on Baltimore right now. We are on the rise.
Well, this guy does things, this is special because May has some significance for tourism, does it not?
Yeah, the second week of May is National Tour and Travel Week. The National Tourism Association puts this together.
Second week of May, that used to be Preakness around here. That's sort of right?
Yeah. Well, what is it this year? May 20th, I think, is Preakness?
Well, Schuler's coming a little later. Todd Schuler from Blondell Miller is going to be my last guest here today, Captain Layers, and he has promised me a full preview of the Kentucky Derby.
All right.
So, he's a horse guy. So,
how many horses are in the Derby this year? 30, 40?
At least 18. I know.
They're all tripping over each other at the Derby.
That's right. I've been to 8 or 9 Derbies. I would love for the Preakness is the next opportunity. And I don't want to dog the Preakness, but it is one day, one weekend a year. It's the industry of horse racing.
Sure.
And that's important. But the baseball team,
Yeah.
That's always been front and center to say
81
that
times.
that can be what saves the city.
Absolutely.
It makes the city better.
Yeah, no, I agree. But National Tour and Travel Week is the second week in May, and we at the Maryland Tourism Coalition have put together this project where we're going to try to see as much of Maryland as we can in one day. So I'm going to be driving my 2014.
You did this last year.
I did this last year. This was my idea, and it was kind of a crazy idea, and I was just going to kind of do it on my own, and then I brought it to the...
Is this like having 30 crab cakes in 30 days all over the state? Crazy
Similar,
idea.
yeah.
I told you we had a lot in common.
Yeah, just wacky ideas. No, I thought, listen, I bet I could get up early in the morning in Ocean City when the sun's coming up over the Atlantic Ocean and then get in my car and drive all the way across the state of Maryland, stopping along the way at various places until I got out to Deep Creek Lake as the sun is setting over the mountains. And so that's what I did. I set it up with a couple of different destination marketing organizations across the state. We started in Ocean City, went to Annapolis, Baltimore, National Harbor outside of D.C., up to Havre de Grace, and then turned west, stopped in Frederick.
Dude, it took me a month to do this. How the hell did you do this in 24 hours?
I don't know. It was less than 24 hours because it was sunrise to sunset. So
where'd you end? Deep Creek?
Deep Creek Lake. And it was awesome. I was super exhausted. You can find the video on YouTube. I made a quick little montage of all the places where I stopped. So I said, this is Maryland in a day in less than 8 minutes. But it was great, and it got a little bit of attention. So this year we're doing a different route. Instead of going east to west, we're going to go north to south, and I'm going to start in Havre de Grace and make my way down.
Not Elkton?
Not Elkton. No,
they're going to be pissed at you up in Elkton.
But I am stopping in Cecil County. Don't worry.
Why don't you start in northeast? You can't get any more north and east than northeast.
Yeah, right at the. Yeah, well, this is the way we've worked it out because the Hartford County and Havre de Grace celebrating their 250th anniversary this year, so they've got a lot to celebrate. They got a lot to be proud of. We're going to start there.
I had Glassman on a show last week.
Concord Port Lighthouse. You're familiar with that,
very
right?
much so.
Love it. And then just make the way down the contours of the Chesapeake Bay, through Cecil County, Kent Narrows, Queen Anne's County, Dorchester County, until we get all the way out to Crisfield. And down there, I'm going to have some Smith Island cake for dessert. That's going to be my reward.
Are you going out to the island?
I'm not going to go to the island until the next morning.
I've been in her kitchen.
But I am going out to the island.
I went out they took us down there. Tim, we had great people on the Eastern Shore 2 summers ago. We went to her kitchen, and she made the cakes with us in her kitchen. I'm just telling you, if you get on the boat from Crisfield, and I was told this, one of my dearest friends, Anita McCool, I grew up with in Dundalk, has spent her whole life in Crisfield since Dundalk, and she told me that the mosquitoes look for the tourists.
Oh, they know.
And I got on the boat, and we took the tender out to Smith Island or Smith Islands, the little islands out there. And when I got back, the bugs had bitten under my neck, under my hairline back here, and they weren't mosquitoes. I don't know what the hell they were. Watch yourself in Crisfield. There's bugs in Crisfield.
I will keep that in mind. Maybe I'll wear a turtleneck.
Chris Riehl is here. He'll be wearing something. What day are you doing the Maryland in miniature?
May the 9th.
May 9th. Okay. Well, I love that when people call Maryland the United States in miniature.
We got it all.
Because we have the ocean, we have the mountains, we have the water. We have a great city here in Baltimore.
And the day before, by the way, May 8th, to kick off National Tour and Travel Week, we're going to be in Annapolis, right there at the city dock.
Okay.
And we're going to have a proclamation from the governor designating this week as Maryland Tour and Travel Week, and we're going to be talking about all the other events that you can check out during the week on social media. We're having a statewide scavenger hunt. We got prizes to give away, so just a lot to celebrate.
All right, there's a reason for me to call Wes. Yeah. Governor Moore.
Give him a buzz.
I used to call him Wes. Now I got to call him Governor Moore. Chris Riehl's here. Tell me how to find you other than out on Facebook with you and your wife wearing Orioles stuff and smiling a lot.
Yeah. Well, you can always. And by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't say hashtag Orioles sign girl, because every time we go to an Orioles game, she makes a new sign, and she wants that to get out there. So, but
it just did.
It's awesome. I am on Twitter and Instagram at RiehlDeal125. It's RiehlDeal125. And also YouTube.com/Chris Riehl. When the pandemic started and I couldn't do live tours anymore, I set up a little studio in my basement, and I think you saw it with the skipjacks pennants on the wall and the knotty pine. It looks like the basement of a Baltimore row house.
I scored Springsteen tickets up State College a couple weeks ago, and on the way up, there's an antique place in Shrewsbury. And I'm going to bring Shannon on this because I wore my Queen belt buckle because she's the Queen. so I have my rock and roll belt buckles here that I wear. This is the Queen one.
Nice.
Yeah, there it is right there. So I sort of look for them. They're my little thing. But they always wind up. I see an old Narragansett sign or something that's in these antique shops up in Shrewsbury. I got 1966 newspaper preview for the Baltimore Sun and News American and Evening Sun of the 66 World Series.
Oh, wow.
I paid $5. But the thing that led me to it was this beautiful Baltimore Clippers pennant. It was the orange and black with the angry
guy with
the angry ship captain, the angry Clipper captain with the goalie stick. Fight. And I looked at it and I thought, man, I don't collect that kind of stuff anymore, like pennants and autographs. I collect things like wear, right? And I looked at it and I thought, man, what's that worth to me? What would I pay for that? I'd pay $40 for that. He wanted $75, and it's cool, and somebody else, it'll be there. But then he showed me the greatest thing that would go great at Captain Larry's. It might have even been at Captain Larry's back in the 60s. He had this giant hockey skate that was designed to be a beer opener. And it had the Clippers logo on one side, and strangely enough, it had the American Hockey League logo on the other side. And it had some beer. I don't even know what beer it was. But whatever it was clearly the league had a night where they gave away beer bottle openers that were hockey skates. It's a little hockey skate that opens beer from 1968.
Love it.
$225. I didn't love it that much.
$225.
Yeah, it's vintage.
Yeah, well.
Like me in this show.
Are you worth $225?
We go vintage August 3rd. It's our 25th anniversary, which is why we're doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. I need you to help me. You be a part of this. In September, for our 25th anniversary, I'm doing 25 consecutive days with oysters.
Ooh.
In September, it's got an R. It's football season,
Oysters,
right?
yep.
The Orioles will be 10 games ahead at that point,
right.
maybe, or at least in the playoffs, hopefully clinched. We'll have magic numbers.
I love it.
During the oyster. I'm doing the oyster tour, so if you oyster stew, it's kind of like the Forrest Gump. Oyster stew, fried oysters, raw oysters, oysters, whatever the oyster dish is, I want to try as many interesting oyster dishes as I can.
Love that. I learned a lot about oysters this past week. There's a program that the Maryland Office of Tourism puts together called the Chesapeake Storytellers. And they bring together all these people from all around the state who all have stories to tell. And did you know there were oyster wars in the Chesapeake Bay?
Really?
In the 1800s. Virginians and Marylanders literally killing each other because the oysters were so valuable. It was like the gold rush in California.
Have you been on the trail on the little skinny part below Ocean City? The road that goes to the Bay Bridge Tunnel.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, down in Virginia. Yeah.
That area, it's nothing but oysters. That whole area, and the road that leads down that strip, I think it's 13, I believe, or 113, whatever that is. That road has a train track, and I'd only been on it once in my life. I came back from Nags Head during the plague that way. And I saw it, and it's so unbelievably historic and nobody ever drives up and down there. But oysters and the trains and how things worked on the coast in the 1800s, it's all still sitting there.
Yeah,
you can see it.
It's wild. That history is amazing. And right across the street over here at the Baltimore Museum of Industry, that's an old oyster cannery. It's all connected.
I didn't know that.
It's all connected. Yep. The old oyster cannery. That's now the home to the Baltimore Museum.
Chris Riehl knows things about Baltimore and about Maryland, about tourism. He'll be doing his tour on May 9th from Havre de Grace to Chris Field. And I got some crab cakes on Eastern Shore I can send you to.
Right,
I'm telling you. We're Captain Larry's. We're having crab cakes. I want to thank Leonard Raskin for giving me the Raskin. This is a great Baltimore piece. This is a crab claw. I have not used it yet, but it has a beer bottle opener. So this is sort of like the Clippers thing. It opens beers.
Put a beer bottle opener on anything these
Big
days,
appreciation to Raskin Globe and the American Dream, keeping our money together. Our friends at the Maryland Lottery, Instant Lottery Scratch-Offs. By the way, if that's the winner, that's yours. Chris Riehl.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
I'll
Window
let you know.
Nation, 866-90-NATION. You buy two, you get two free. Shannon Toback is going to be our next guest. Todd Schuller is going to be here. Mara and her crew are here. We're at Captain Larry's. Encourage everybody to come by. They have the windows open here. Crab cakes, beer. It says Narragansett outside, but you can drink whatever you want. I'm going to drink something here pretty soon as well. Sort of a legendary space here and some great stories here as well.
For sure.
We are in, is this still Federal Hill? At what point do we change the name of it?
I think we are Riverside Locust Point.
Are we near Baltimore Peninsula? Are we
Baltimore Peninsula is over there someplace. Yeah, this is the South Baltimore Peninsula, though.
We're downtown, hon. South Baltimore is what I would call it.
South Baltimore
my dad
Peninsula.
were alive. He said, yeah, it's South Baltimore. We're in Fort Avenue in Federal Hill. It's all brought to you by Window Nation, the Maryland Lottery, and our friends at Wise Markets as well. I am Nestor. Big appreciation to Chris for coming out. Go tour up with him. Go learn some things. Go take a nighttime crawl with him.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, last thing for you on the tourism thing. I'm in Hawaii the other night. Were the northern lights really visible at Deep Creek Lake?
I read about that.
Dude, that is my
bucket
list of all bucket lists.
But I saw some photos of it. I think even closer than Deep Creek Lake. Where did I just see something? Yeah, but they were visible as far south as Maryland, and it was pretty
missed
wild.
it again.
I know. I was.
It's
That's
like
bucket
no-hitters.
list for
I
me,
keep
too.
missing them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll get one this summer. I am Nestor. We are WNST. We are broadcasting from Captain Larry's. We're down in Federal Hill. Back for more on the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. Stay with us.